It's me, I'm back again. We're doing this again. This whole I'm back again thing. Yay! So the main reason I wanted to make this video is because I actually read a lot of really good books in 2025 and I have not had the chances to talk about them through my own fault because I haven't been making videos, and I wanted to shout about at least some of them on here. Because 2025 was a year where I actually felt like I got back into enjoying my reading again and read some really amazing books. And hopefully I'll talk to you about some more of them other times in the future. But for now, let's just talk about the creme de la creme. So I think we should start off with one of the books that I have had on my TBR for the longest time that I knew that I would love, and that is The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss. I read this towards the end of this year, last year, 2025, and I freaking loved it. Obviously, that's why I'm talking about it in this video. This is about a family where the oldest daughter randomly at school one day collapses, her heart stops, she stops breathing, and there is no particular obvious reason why this happens. It's narrated by her father, who is a stay-at-home father. He occasionally does work at the university in the town where they live. He's the primary caregiver and housekeeper, I guess, for his family of his wife, who is a doctor, and his two daughters. And you follow this family through this incredibly traumatic event, what happens leading up to it, during it, after it, and how it impacts them all for a long time to come, how they all deal with it, process it differently, how the family dynamics change. Primarily this deals with the idea of how it is possible to bear the idea that at any moment your children's lives could end. They could come to harm in whatever way. But not only that, it's about more how it's possible to even love at all in that kind of state of worry and anxiousness, and how you live a life not totally consumed by fear once you come to the understanding that anything could happen to the people that you care about, and for the most part you are powerless to stop it. It's really cheery. It's a really fun time. So it is a really difficult read at points because it does not shy away from mortality, the horrible things that could happen to people, but also without any kind of sentimentality. It manages to be incredibly life-affirming, because the answer that it comes to in terms of how can you carry on in the face of suffering and death is you have to, and there's no choice. That doesn't sound very hopeful, but it is. And the way that she explores all around this idea is so incredibly masterful and moving and difficult. The lives of these characters feel incredibly real and tangible. The kids are very funny, and it just reminded me of all the reasons that I love Sarah Moss. The way that she constructs characters and stories in a way that then allows her to explore ideas that feels really natural, and she often takes a sort of one event in a group of characters' lives and kind of expands on it to make this sort of state of the nation type novel, which, even though this was written in like 2015, it still feels pretty relevant. Yeah, Sarah Moss in my eyes can do no wrong, and this just proved that she is one of my favourite writers. I love her stuff so much. Next up, let's talk about Universality by Natasha Brown. This is a very short satirical novel, like her previous one, Assembly, which I also loved, by the way, that takes place in the sort of COVID times in Britain. It starts off with a newspaper article about a party. At that party, someone is supposedly hit in the head with a gold bar. The article villainizes the owner of the gold bar, from whom it was stolen, to then almost bludgeon to death a person at the party. So you get this sort of expose article about this event, and then from there the second half of the book is sort of looks at the actual characters behind all of this, the people who make up the events and the story that is told in this article. It has a lot to say about the media in Britain, how kind of attention cycles and news cycles function to create sensationalized stories that are then forgotten about or left with no real repercussions, and how stories are told to really prey on people's instincts and fears, etc. It goes in lots of directions I wasn't expecting, and I just think that for such short, punchy books, Natasha Brown is able to pack so many ideas and so much commentary into her writing. It's really impressive and I enjoy it every time. Admittedly, every time is twice because I've only read 2 of her books. She's only written 2 books, but still, every single damn time. Next, let's talk about the Safekeep, winner of 2025's Women's Prize. This is freaking excellent, and lots of people know that already because they've already read it and talked about it, and it has been yelled about a lot, and I'm going to contribute to the positive yelling because it's just freaking great. So this is set in the early 60s in the Netherlands, following Isabel, who lives alone in her large family home until her brother brings his new girlfriend, Eva, who is kind of the opposite to Isabel in many ways. She is not at all kind of classy. She's very free with her emotions, and they have to live together in Isabel's house that she really covets and sees as a kind of extension of herself. But then it all kind of goes in many different directions at once. I don't want to spoil this if you have not read, but it is one of the most surprising, sexy books I have ever read. It is incredibly intriguing, keeps you wanting more the whole time, and then really smacks you over the head with a twist that I saw coming because I'd seen people talking about it before, and it is kind of hinted at. But yeah, it really goes in a lot of different directions, but all of the directions are just so fascinating and well plotted, and I just wanted to read this all the time. I did not want to stop. It's brilliant. Next, we have Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Oh, I love James Baldwin so much. He's so ridiculously incredible, and everything he writes is just the best, basically. This is a kind of semi-autobiographical novel about a young boy called John, who lives in New York, in Harlem, with a very, very religious family. His father is a preacher sometimes, and John is supposed to become a preacher when he grows up as well. But he kind of doesn't entirely feel like this fits with him and his idea of who he is. It takes place over 24 hours, but within that 24 hours you learn about most of his family members, their backstories, their lives, and people within his community, their relationship to religion, and sexuality and shame and all of these different things. And it is just gorgeous. It's so beautifully written, obviously because it's Baldwin and the way he takes you with him on this journey with all of these characters. It's brilliant. I want to read everything that he has ever written. I've read 3 novels so far and I have adored them all. So yeah, there is more James Baldwin in my future and I'm very excited about it. Next is Hunchback by Saou Ichikawa, translated from Japanese by Polly Barton. This is the most wild little book. It's so strange, but so impactful, and made me totally reconsider how I view sexuality and disability and so many other things. This is about a woman with a congenital muscle disorder that makes her need to use an electric wheelchair and a ventilator. She's essentially housebound. She has several carers, and she also lives in a kind of care home facility set up mostly for her by her parents. She spends her life mostly online, expressing all of her deepest, darkest desires on the internet. She is talking out into the internet void until a new male carer reveals that he has read everything and knows everything about her. And from there, our narrator sees an opportunity to maybe do some of the things that she has always wanted to and never been able to. This is another very short book that manages to pack in a lot of ideas. I think it maybe could have been a little bit longer, and that would have helped it, but I do think it is incredibly impressive how much complex discussion of class, sexuality, disability, desire, everything, money, power there is in this little book. And it just made me see the world differently, I have a cat, than I did before. And what more can you ask for from a book, really? Next is a book that is kind of different from lots of these other ones, but I have to include it, and it is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, and I think it is maybe my favourite of all of them. Ooh, I loved this book so much. I listened to the audiobook and I would highly recommend that as a way of experiencing this book. It is really good. And basically, this book had me hooked from the moment I started listening to it. I could not stop. I just wanted to know what happened. I cared so deeply about these characters. The way she constructs this story is so gripping and emotional, and I absolutely sobbed my eyes out at the end. And I just think that The Hunger Games is excellent dystopia that gets to the heart of politics and morality and people and how they work. Next is Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. I did a full video review of this, and I think I also did one for Hunchback actually, so I will link both of those, maybe if there are two, in the description. Perfection is another short little book that manages to pack a lot in. It's about this couple that live in Berlin as expats, and their experiences of modern life, the internet, authenticity. It's funny and depressing and incredibly sharp. Like, it does not leave anyone unscathed, and I really enjoyed reading it. Next is We Do Not Part by Han Kang. This starts off with our narrator being asked to travel to her friend's house to feed her bird because her friend has been hospitalized suddenly. So she takes this journey in a lot of snow and ice, well, a snowstorm that is increasingly getting worse. And the first part of this I was so gripped by, even though it's really quiet and almost soft like a snowstorm. You feel the kind of threat and dread through the quietness. But I was so gripped by not knowing if she was going to make it in time, or if she was going to die in this increasing snowstorm. But beyond that, you also get this amazing story emerging very gradually of the narrator's friend Inseon, her family, and the history of Jeju Island, and some horrible things that happen there. And the way that this comes out, the way that this emerges and becomes clear to you is so beautiful, it's so haunting, and I just love this book. It's brilliant. That's all I have to say. Next is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. This is a historical fiction novel with a slight supernatural, fantastical twist. It starts off with a ex-war nurse in 1918 in Canada who hears that her brother is supposedly dead in action, but she, for various reasons, doesn't quite think that everything adds up, and she goes back to Belgium to become a nurse again and try and find him. Interspersed with this narrative, you also get the narrative of her brother a few months earlier, who is stuck in a shell hole, and he finds himself there with a German soldier. And the other part of the narrative is the two of them trying to escape and survive and get back to relative safety. But safety looks very different to each of them, and where they go, how they escape the sort of horrors that they have experienced, is where the fantastical element comes in. This is a book primarily about the traumas of war and how people try and escape it. I loved all of the characters, all of their stories, and how they work through these horrible things that they have seen on the front lines in World War I. There's a lot of darkness in this book, obviously, because it is a World War I book, but it is not hopeless, and I think the balance of those two things is done really well. And when I say there is a fantastical element, I think it is done so beautifully that it is almost, it feels real, and it feels like it could be real. And I think she just really balances so well the realism and darkness and horror of war with a story that is not entirely hopeless. And I just really loved it. It made me so emotional and so attached to these characters and this story. Next is Ordinary Saints by Niamh Mhaoileoin. This is a really funny and incredibly sad book about grief and religion and queerness and family, and God, it's just so freaking good, man. This follows the narrator Jay, who is a gay Irish woman living in London. She's somewhat estranged from her family until she hears from her parents in some way that her older brother, who she adored, and who died suddenly while training to be a priest in Rome, the parents are going to start the process of trying to make her brother a saint. And because of this, Jay has to sort of return to her family and deal with a whole bunch of different things that she's sort of been hiding away from. This is really one that is so unique. Like, I've never read anything else about people being made into saints, and it is so fascinating learning more about that process, and also about the people who make that process happen and who it affects. It is also about very simple universal things like grief and family and not fitting in. I listened to the audiobook of this, and there were points where I was listening in public and I just had to sit down and do everything in me not to cry, because the way this portrays the rawness of grief and how different people deal with it is so affecting and moving, and I just loved it. But it's also incredibly funny. Like, there's so much in here that is absolutely farcical and ridiculous, and again, the balance between those things is done so wonderfully well. It feels so real. Next up is a book that took me completely by surprise in some senses is Moderation by Elaine Castillo. I was so excited for this because it's about a content moderator for an online social media company. She has to go through horrible things that people have posted online and remove them and flag them for specific content. When I heard about this, I just finished reading a non-fiction book that touched on that, which actually will be in the video later on, and it was such a fascinating concept for me that then when I found out that Elaine Castillo had written a book with a character in this profession, I was so excited because I loved America Is Not the Heart, Elaine Castillo's previous book, and I was just like, this is perfect, this is fate But this turned out to not be exactly what I expected it to be in the best way. And I know that there are some people who were kind of, have been sort of disappointed by this book, and that it was not what they expected it to be. But for me, it was actually exactly what I wanted and didn't realise that I wanted. So like I say, this starts off with Girly, who is a content moderator. She is incredibly good at it, and she gets recruited into this kind of mysterious new wing of her company that she works for, to be a kind of expert content moderator for a virtual reality platform. But in this process, it kind of turns into a romance, sort of tech workplace romance between two very emotionally repressed people, and I just ate it up. It's like part workplace rom-com, part satire, dark satire on the world of tech and AI and what people do when they are on the internet and they can feel like they can do whatever they want, all that kind of stuff. And I felt like it fused those elements together really well with some very fun characters and dynamics that seemed so real. I just could not get enough, and I devoured this. I had such a good time. Yeah, this is not for everyone, as I am now finding out, because my friend Emma is running the Weird Woman book club, and this is their pick for January, and not everyone is loving it as much as I did. But I think that is partly because they weren't expecting the romance element, which I also wasn't, but I very much enjoyed it. So I think if you go in knowing that this is partly a kind of silly fun romance and then also an exploration of internet culture, I think you will enjoy this if that is what you are looking for. I will say I would like more of the kind of content moderation exploration. I think that is something that I do still want to read more about. So if you have any recommendations for books about content moderation, I would be very interested to hear about them. Last but not least, for the fiction section of this video, and I might split them into two actually now thinking about it, we have She Needs No Introduction. It's Only Bloody Beloved by Toni Morrison, another book that I knew that I would love and that I have had on my TBR for years. This book, like Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin, is an absolute classic for a bloody reason, and now I know that reason. This is the first book by Toni Morrison I've read, and trust and believe I will probably be reading everything that she has ever written. This is about Seth, a woman who has escaped from slavery, and she is living in the north of the US, and her baby daughter, only known as Beloved, her ghost is haunting Seth and their house, looking for love and also terrorizing the family. I kind of knew nothing about this book going in, which I think actually really helped, because I had no prior expectations. This is scary. It is dark in the sense that it looks at slavery and its horrors really close up, and it looks at what cruelty does to people in so many different ways. But it is also incredibly hopeful and beautiful. There's so much beauty and love in this book, and it is incredible. It's so moving to read. It takes the haunted house and just flips it on its head again. I don't know how it's possible to write a book that is so unflinching and so gorgeous at the same time. This is just ridiculously good, but you don't need me to tell you that. So I think we'll leave it there for the moment, and I'll do non-fiction separately, because this has been quite a lot of rambling with me trying to get back into talking about books again. If you have read any of these books or you want to read them, please let me know. We can chat. I just love talking about books. That's why I'm here again, because I miss it and I like doing it, and I'm gonna keep doing it, hopefully. I am currently quite busy because I am doing a master's in history. I started in September. I'm also still working part-time and doing the master's part-time. So there's a lot going on, and we're about to get into second term situation. So yeah, I might just disappear again, but at least I've chatted about the best books of 2025. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I will see you very soon, hopefully. Is that a good match? I can't tell because I'm not looking at myself. Anyway, it's so fucking stupid.